Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to preview the weekend slate. Except for two games that we've already previewed, you can catch those on our channel. Now we're going to preview the remaining five games. That's Georgia and Florida, Mississippi State and Alabama, South Carolina and LSU, Tennessee and Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss and Missouri. Before we get into those games, a reminder, this channel presented by BetOnline, which is your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year with up-to-the-minute odds, stats, and trends. You can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or mobile devices. Head to BetOnline today. Become part of the team. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, the games start on Saturday. We will start with Florida, Georgia. And boy, Georgia really has hit on some hard times. However, the Bulldogs have got one in their building. Georgia's been pretty competitive. Florida comes in just on a roll. Blake, how you seeing this one?
Well, that's a loaded question. Boy, this was quite an interesting game last time around. As we know, it was Georgia rallying from, what were they down? 21, I think, midway through the second half. Wound up taking that game to overtime. They shot it really well. Florida just turned the ball over way too much. That's kind of one of the reasons why Georgia was able to get back into it. But ultimately, it was the Gators pulling out the win, and that was kind of an important one because that sent Florida into that game against Kentucky, and then of course from there they've played really well, including the win against Auburn. The only blemish on the old resume since January 16th is the 1 point loss at A&M. So the Gators are doing a lot of things well, but as always, playing on the road in the SEC is a challenge, and we just saw them lose at A&M. Georgia is on a 5-game losing streak right now, and this is one of those games, as always, in the SEC. It's like, do you see the home team who's just kind of desperate? Do they just find a way to get it done here? I would expect this to be a close game because I don't think Florida has been dominant enough, away from home, like most teams, to feel like they're just going to come run Georgia out of the gym. But I will go back to the same thing I've said, is that this is kind of a similar setup for Georgia to me because, what's the difference in not beating Alabama? What's the difference in not beating Tennessee? What's the difference in losing some of these other games? It's just they just hit some of these stretches where they cannot score. And Florida is such a really, well-oiled machine now in terms of scoring. I don't think they're putting up 102 like they did last time, but they're going to get a lot of offensive boards. They're going to get a lot of extra opportunities. Georgia's given up a lot of rebounds. We talked about that all year. Not the best rebounding team overall. And so there's a lot of things in Florida's favor here. It's just, for Georgia, they've got to be consistent enough offensively while also understanding that they got to play some defense against this Florida team. So,
yeah, Florida to me just feels like this team's got so mity options. You mentioned Georgia's difficulty scoring. I just look at the rosters. Georgia's a fine team, maybe an NIT level team. But Florida's got 6-7 guys that are just dudes. I feel like you look at the matchups at every spot. And again, Georgia's figured out a way to stay in most games, but I think talent wins out on this one, although it is on the road, and we know how scary that can be in the SEC. Still, I will take the Gators.
yeah, Florida had 16 offensive rebounds last time around. Henlogan had 7, Samuel had 5, Richard had 3. And so that's even without a couple of the other big guys getting an offensive rebound. And I just think that's probably the difference here because Georgia can be stingy enough defensively, as we've talked about this year, to make it challenging. I don't anticipate this being the type of game the last one was in terms of that high scoring, even though both teams like to get up and down the floor. I think this will come back to reality a little bit in terms of the scoring numbers. But yeah, it's hard to pick against Florida. They have played so well. Like I said, really that A&M game, just a tough spot, but that's it. Everybody else, they found ways to win, including the thrashing of Auburn and winning some of these games. Now, The only thing you could say is, they let LSU back into it. Just some of those defensive lapses for Florida. They show up here. Maybe Georgia has the best offensive game of the season. We've seen that happen with teams shoot it well enough, but it's hard to pick against the Gators here, even though I think Ken Pom has this a 3-point game. So be careful, Florida Gators. You don't
Life
want
on
to
the
give one
road.
away here, but it should be interesting. So
Yeah, I mean, and just when you think a team can't lose on the road in this league to a low level team, we saw what happened to A&M the other night. It's hard to win in somebody else's building.
sure, it's like, pick the team who has been as good as anybody over the past maybe month versus the team that's on a 5-game losing streak. But
Yeah.
yet, in the SEC, if that 5-game losing streak team's at home, well, look out because all bets are off. So, I'm still picking Florida, but this is one that would worry me if I'm a Gators fan in the Mike White Bowl Part 2.
All right, that one starts 1 Eastern on the SEC Network. An hour later, Arkansas, Mississippi State tip-off. Ken Pom has got this one, Blake, as about a 13-point Mississippi State advantage. Look, Arkansas, not even good at home the other night. Tennessee, which had not won in that building since 2009, just blew the Razorbacks out of the water. It's been a recurring theme on this channel. What does this team have to play for at this point? It's Arkansas could win out and it would miss expectations given on what we thought this team was. Mississippi State, a team that's got a lot to play for, can't afford to stub a toe here. And Chris Jans and company did this a year ago. Remember, State had that brutal schedule to start off, went 1-7 in the league, I believe, and then rallied to make the NCAA tournament. This one in Starkville, I don't really know what we have to talk about here, to be honest.
I mean, this was kind of that stretch of games we said for Mississippi State where you felt like this is where the corner was turned. Starting 3-6, you beat Georgia by 13, 4-6. You beat Missouri on the road by 24, 5-6. Now you play an Arkansas team that is going nowhere, with a really good shot to be 6-6. And what I like about what Mississippi State's done in the previous 2 games is they've won those games the way they should win those games. They didn't just let teams hang around. They took it to Missouri. They wound up pulling away from Georgia. So I would expect more of the same here. And once again, it's just you're just playing a guessing game with Arkansas at this point. You don't know exactly what you're getting ever. Mississippi State is so good defensively. I mean, think about who Arkansas just played. They played Tennessee, who is so good defensively, and it's kind of a similar theme here when you play Mississippi State, although that one was at home for Arkansas. Now you got to go on the road, play a team that's not as good offensively as Tennessee. They don't have a Dalton Connect or anything like that, but we know Mississippi State will just grind you into submission here, and that is something that would really be a bother, I think, if I'm Arkansas trying to find a path to victory here, because we just look at all the stats. I mean, what does Arkansas have kind of in its favor, I guess, if you look at this overall? Like Mississippi State, good offensive rebounding team. They're going to get second chance opportunities. I guess if you want to find something, Arkansas's best defensive area has been defending the 2, and they block some shots. That's where Mississippi State's going to get a lot of their points. Of course, is inside the arc. It's still not the greatest shooting team out there. For Arkansas, as we said, how does Arkansas need to score? They need to get to the free throw line. And I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to do that on the road against a team like this that defends as well as Mississippi State. Sure, they may foul some, but they're not giving up a ton of it. Like, right, if you look at it, Chris, I'm sure you see the same thing. Like, they're not giving up a large percentage of their points defensively from the free throw line. And so I don't know what else to add either. I mean, this is a game that Mississippi State should win handily. As I'm just going through this, I just don't see a lot of things that would give me confidence in picking Arkansas here for all the reasons we've already listed in, millions of other videos already this season. There's just not a lot that I see that could convince me that Arkansas is going to go in, unless this is one of those games where Arkansas just says, all right, we are not going to let you take a shot inside of the perimeter. Yeah. Like, we're just going to find a way to form like a, whatever, and just say, hey, everything you shoot has to be taken from 15 feet or further. If they do that, if they can somehow find a way to pull that game plan off, then they got a chance. But the problem is Arkansas has not been good defensively this year. I don't see that strategy working out. But, yeah, this should be another Mississippi State victory.
Are we just presuming they're going to be without Brazil again?
I have no idea. Why presume
Yeah,
anything at this point? I don't know. So I
well,
think so because the last
yeah.
comment Musk made was that he had no idea when he'd be back. So that tells me
that doesn't sound hopeful. I mean, look, if you want to go out on a limb and say something crazy happens, Tremont Mark has carried them at times. Keon Minifield had that huge game right before conference play started. He was Pac-12 freshman of the year. They've got parts here and there. Devontae Davis is back after missing 3 games. Played all 40 minutes the other night. Didn't matter. They got beat worse than ever. I mean, if somehow
State's been great at home, like they have been outside of the Alabama game.
Hey, look, I'm not calling it. I'm just telling you, like if we come on here Saturday night and say, "Holy cow, what happened?" It would be something like that. But I'm not buying it. So
no, that's the difference. Alabama beat Mississippi State home because Alabama was just an elite offensive team. This team has already beaten Tennessee. They've beaten Auburn at home. I would expect more of the same here, unless, like you said, just something. And remember, too, Mississippi State, the midweek stat, they had the midweek off. And so they've had a full week off to get ready for this one. So I think that's in their favor, too.
All right, South Carolina comes off just a disaster in Neville Arena, which that happens to a lot of teams, and it may not be a 40-point game every time, but that just was one of those nights. Auburn had come off just a disastrous performance at Florida. We called it. We said, hey, that's an awful spot to be in. I think wipe that one clean, probably take that one out of the discussion unless there's some lingering confidence issues for this team. But let's be honest. South Carolina's 21-4. They won a lot of games. They've beaten some good teams. They've beaten Tennessee. They've beaten Kentucky. There's enough there for Lamont Paris to draw from to get things right. LSU has done some things on the road. Did beat A&M. I guess that's the only road win. Played Georgia within 2 points. Played Florida within 2 points. So this is the team that has gone on the road and shown up and done some things when you've got a backcourt of Cook and Wright. Veteran guards are probably a key to winning in somebody else's place. But South Carolina, that was such an anomaly because this team had been so consistent that, again, I go back to where I started. I think that you just kind of wipe this one from the record book and throw it aside in terms of going at it from this matchup, Blake.
I agree. And as I said, I'm not one that's going to jump off the South Carolina bandwagon. I mean,
the Paris Pact.
The Paris Pact is still sitting there on the table, ready to be signed again. Remember, I signed the wrong one last time.
Right.
The Williams Broom one was the one I meant to sign. That was, I like to be, we got to go in order here. But this one, again, would worry me a little bit if I'm South Carolina because I've said it. The reason I don't think LSU is a bad team at all. Like, I know their record is 12-12, but I just think LSU is one of those teams that, as you said, they're kind of like the thorn in your side. Like, they're right there. Lost by 4 to A&M at home, lost by 2 at Georgia, lost by 2 at Florida, rallied to make it interesting at Auburn before Auburn pulled away at the very end. I think this team is like, they're just one of those that I think you just don't want to play. Like, I mean, Alabama has their number, right? But everybody else, I mean, sure, at Tennessee, who cares? I mean, come on. We see what Tennessee does to teams there, even though South Carolina, we saw what they did to Tennessee. But we can't use that formula to go here. Is there a little bit of that hangover effect for South Carolina coming off of a loss like that? And then you've got an LSU team that it's kind of due to do something, right? Like to at least make it interesting. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking this one because there's something about this LSU team that I feel like they are just always right there to make it interesting. And now they're playing a team that's coming off a 40-point loss, a very disappointing performance, as we know. Does LSU get a little bit of that early confidence and maybe come out and hit a couple shots early? Because remember, this team can shoot it well, and that's what we've said with LSU. You have to keep that in mind. If they get hot, they shoot it well enough. I mean, they're a top 80 something team 3-point wise. They shoot about 36%. So, but are they going to get those shots against South Carolina? That's the same question we always ask. It's different for South Carolina going on the road playing at Auburn. Are they going to give LSU those kind of shots, on their home floor? We just haven't seen a lot of teams get those shots that they want. And so that's probably something that would worry me a little bit if I'm LSU trying to find the path to victory here. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick South Carolina to win the game. All I'm saying is this one is just a little, for some reason, I just find this the kind of matchup to me that, again, LSU's 12-12 for a reason. They're not, they're losing games because they're just not finding ways to win them. But they're good enough. And look, you got guys like Tyrell Ward, who's been playing pretty well. Baker's obviously had some good games here to add with Wright and Cook. And we've seen other guys step up, right? I mean, at various points, whether it's a Mike Williams here or there, other guys like that. I mean, so that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that, South Carolina's not been in this spot before. They've not been in this kind of scenario off a loss like that. And what was it? Kentucky fans or South Carolina fans were saying that South Carolina broke Kentucky, right? Like they just broke them. That was where everything sort of went off track for the Cats. Like, did Auburn break South Carolina? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But this is just the kind of game that, I don't know. Like, I hate to say it this way, but like if you're South Carolina, you'd rather be playing like a Missouri or someone like that. Like that you just feel like offensively doesn't have that punch to at least come out and get hot, maybe. So that's all. I'm gonna pick South Carolina to win, but I'm just saying I would not be shocked if this is closer than people may think, just based on where these two teams are at in the standings.
We're on the same page on this one. I'm picking South Carolina, so don't mishear anything I'm about to say. But you mentioned Will Baker. He transferred from Nevada. He's been really good for them lately, kind of carried them, which was a good thing because Jordan Wright just went missing in action last week. But Jordan Wright's a guy that can score 5 one night and come back the next week and give you 30 and carry a team. So look out for that. I feel like he's due to play better. Number two, and Blake, I'm astonished you didn't bring this up, given your love for the computers.
Well,
one team is 50 in Ken Palm and the other is 85. And if you look at just if these two teams played on a neutral floor, Ken Palm has got them about per 100 possessions, about 6 points, 5 points different per 100 possessions. Let's see. Let me just make sure I got this right. Yeah, actually 4.5 points. So if you scale that down to a 70 possession game, this is about a 3-point game, Carolina's favor on a neutral floor. And here's why. We talk about the luck, and people are going to just lose their minds. Here's what luck is in Ken Palm. It's saying you scored this many points on the year, you've given up that many. Generally speaking, your win-loss record would be X, but it's Y. How do we quantify the difference between what you should be? And that usually holds up over time and what you are. LSU, on the other hand, is 320 in luck. So that's saying should be a little better than 12 and 12. I think that just quantifies some things you said in a different way. Now, look, we have said, I think with South Carolina, there's teams that you sort of throw out the computers on. And I think this is one reason is Colin Murray Boyles. The computer rankings have taken into account a lot of games where he didn't play or he didn't play at the level he's playing at now. Plus, I think the style just transcends some of the numbers. So there is that. But if we look back and say LSU pulled an upset in Columbia, I think it would be the hangover factor and also the fact that the predictive computers think these teams are a lot closer than maybe most people would just looking at it saying, of course South Carolina is going to win at home.
Yeah, just a couple other quick stats. LSU is number 3 in the SEC in conference play in 3-point percentage, 37.4%. As we said, South Carolina's basically just filtered everybody inside the perimeter. Like they're giving up most of the points inside because people just can't get shots outside because they're aggressive and they're not allowing that. But LSU's also, and I didn't realize this, LSU's also the 5th team in the SEC right now in conference play in 3-point percentage defense. They're only allowing 32.5% from 3. Now keep in mind, South Carolina, we know, has been a team that, really needs to shoot the ball well to be in a good position, because again, their defense kind of had to carry them sometimes. So they are going to shoot the three, and so that's something else to kind of look at. But at the same time, I keep going back to this. I'm just like, it is so different when you're playing South Carolina. We thought the Auburn South Carolina, not to 40-point level, but we just thought that was just a bad spot. I
It
know
was a
I picked
bad
South
setup.
Carolina. We were having fun with that, but still, it just was one of those things where, yeah, it was just kind of the perfect storm for South Carolina in that game. This is a little bit different, and I think it's just one where, like I said, how many people have come in there and shot the ball well, and I think LSU has to do that to win, and they've just not allowed a lot of opponents to do that. So, yeah, I'm going to pick South Carolina, so calm down.
The Paris Pact prevails.
Just you always worry. Doesn't matter who you are. After a loss like that, you always just worry a little bit. Like, you always have a little bit of, that wonder if that hangover effect's there. But Mont Paris has motivated this team all year. I think they'll be okay.
Next up, Vanderbilt visits Tennessee, 6 Eastern, SEC Network. Vanderbilt got a very unexpected win over Texas A&M. Ezra Mannion hit a buzzer beater. Van Allen Lubin had probably a career game, got 25 points. And really what was not a game I would have thought that he would have jumped up and had a great one there, given Anderson Garcia and all those guys and the work they do on the backboards. So that was a little bit of an anomaly. We talked about Tennessee's utter destruction of Arkansas and Fayetteville, where they plundered the village and took all the spoils back to Knoxville with them. This is a game, Ken Palm's got Tennessee winning this by 22, 98% chance to win. I don't know if Tennessee maybe, I don't know if hangover is the right word. I mean, it was Arkansas, right? I guess what I'm doing, I'm trying to find a way in which this game is close. And if you want to look at history, Vanderbilt has played Tennessee closer the last couple years than the spreads would indicate. It feels like this is not a good Vanderbilt team, right? But this is usually when Vanderbilt starts to play better. Jerry Stackhouse is able to do some things with sets and stuff like that. But I just don't see Vanderbilt replicating what it did against this team on that floor with that talent disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll just get our picks out of the way. I think it's very clear we're both going to pick Tennessee in this game. But if you brought up, and which I've brought it up, I feel like the past couple of years, like, yeah, if you look at the series history, like, these two teams have actually played some pretty close games. And that was our talk the last time they played. We were like, man, these games have been really close. And it wound up being 13, but, it was closer than that at times. And, I mean, Vanderbilt had a lead at one point or late in the first half or something, I think. But this is different. It's the same thing. It's you're going on the road to Knoxville, and look at what we've seen teams do there this season. Outside of South Carolina, everybody has just, they've just gone in and not been able to get it going. And like you said, it'd be different if the Arkansas game was maybe last year. But this is this year's Arkansas team. Tennessee just came out, did exactly what they needed to do after the Texas A&M loss, just very disappointing. And so, like I mentioned, Tennessee had the luxury of kind of resetting here. Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Missouri, the 3 bottom teams in the SEC in a row. They come back home. There's so many things here. Vanderbilt is playing better. They're developing. Like, we're seeing guys, step up, make, plays that maybe they wouldn't have made earlier in the season and all that. And you're still going to always, I think, have a chance to make it interesting as long as you have the 2 guards with Mannion and Lawrence. But it's just everything else, right? Are you getting the same kind of game from Van Allen Lubin here against Tennessee? That's the question. And it's on the road. It's just a different environment. It's a different situation. Last time around, Connect had the huge game. He went 32 points. Tennessee, I'm trying to look back. It's been so long. I remember that game. I'm like, I don't remember what all went down in that game. But,
Which
Lawrence
game?
had 20.
The last one? The last year?
That was
the okay, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Lawrence had 21. Mannion had 14. And so no one else really stepped up around them in the previous game here. So, Lubin had 8. Rivera Torres had 7. Taylor 6. Lewis 6. So it's just not bad. It's not bad production. But it's just, if you're going to beat Tennessee, you got to have the whole crew, right? Like, you got to have everybody. And Vanderbilt didn't shoot it well last time either, which hadn't shot it well this season. So all that to say, I don't know. Unless Tennessee just comes out and can't hit a shot, unless it's the same theme we've talked about where Tennessee just cannot score, Connect's having an off night for whatever reason, no one else is stepping up. Maybe this becomes a bit of a grind because these games have been closer than you would think. And so maybe that's the best bet, is to feel like it happens again. But there just really aren't any statistical areas I can look at and say Vanderbilt's going to be able to attack that area and win the game. I don't see it. So
yeah, I'm going back and looking at the game flow from the first one. I remember watching this one, and Tennessee just kind of controlled it the whole way. Vanderbilt made a run. The closest Vanderbilt got to having a shot to win was 24% with about 1 to 2 minutes left in the first half. Second half, Vanderbilt had a 22% chance to win at about the 16-minute mark, and then it just kind of steadily went downhill from there to where we got the 5-minute mark, and Tennessee was a 99+% favorite. So that's just kind of how a lot of these have gone. Vanderbilt's been pesky enough to kind of hang around and do stuff to bother them to keep Tennessee from just blowing them out of the gym. But in the end, the talent's just been too much.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. That's probably the same theme here. Wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt hung around for a little bit. But you're going to pick the Vols in any scenario.
Yeah.
So.
All right, last one. Ole Miss, Missouri, 8:30 Eastern on the SEC Network. Blake, I got to ask, have we done a welfare check on your client, Dennis Gates? Because every time I look at him on the sidelines, he just looks like, holy cow, what is happening and what do I do about this?
Well, yeah, it's they're just, you have those snake-bitten seasons, and this has been it for Missouri. Let's call it what it is, right? And I know people have their fun with me out there on Twitter, like it's just, you said this guy was a great coach, and now look. Well, okay, as always, you can't act like last season didn't exist. Like, it did happen.
Right.
And yes, it's gone the complete opposite way this year. There's no question. And could they be doing some better things coaching-wise? Sure. I'm sure they would even come out and say, hey, we need to probably do better here. We need to do better there. But at the end of the day, what we always say, like, if you're going to win, and what makes coaches look great, right?
Great players.
When you have great players, and it's not knocking this roster. It's just you don't have the complete, you don't have everybody. And so, look, if anybody thought that they were going to have a chance to beat A&M or Mississippi State without Sean East, it just wasn't going to happen. Like, again, the team that was already, we said they were hanging around, they were close in games because they had Sean East. You take him out of the mix, you're not going to beat teams like that. And now you got to go on the road and play a team that's been fantastic at home this year, and Ole Miss, who's been better offensively than we thought they would be, and they're probably going to come out and score it really well. Top 15 shooting team, 3-point wise. So, I have no idea if Sean East is playing. We're doing this on Friday. Either way, I don't think it matters in terms of the pick. I'm obviously going to pick Ole Miss, but, I don't have a lot to add here. Like, I just think it's a lost season for Missouri. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, like, you do have to look at the opponent too. And it's just like, they're just running into the wrong opponent every time. They can kind of exploit all their weaknesses. And Ole Miss is the kind of team that, doesn't turn the ball over. They're going to get good shots. They're going to make shots from the perimeter. And it's just, and Ole Miss is another team too. I think they're nowhere near where they want to be defensively yet under Chris Beard, but they're good enough to where they're probably going to force a few turnovers. They're going to make it hard on, Missouri getting good shots. And there's just so many things that have to go right for Missouri right now to win a game like this. And I just don't know how you can think that that's going to happen given everything we've seen. And if Sean East doesn't play, which again, guys, I'm just saying, you may like, oh, he's definitely playing or he's not playing. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Like, they need him on the floor, but it's just like in the result, it's not going to change my pick, right? I'm still going to pick Ole Miss. But that's the only way. Like, if you're trying to find the path, they've got to have Sean East on the floor. And if you don't, this team just does not have all the pieces offensively to sometimes even be competitive in these games, as we've seen in the last two. So,
Well, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter. It
well,
doesn't
I didn't
change
mean
my
it
pick
that
either
way.
way. I know you
I
didn't.
meant pick wise. I didn't mean it didn't matter
Right.
for
Well, let me quantify how much I think Shawn East matters to Missouri right now. I was watching that Vanderbilt game. Missouri came out like a house on fire and was just dominating Vanderbilt in Nashville 2 weekends ago. And East rolled an ankle. I want to say, I don't know, maybe a few minutes left in the first half. Came back and played, but clearly was not the same guy. Hadn't played the 2 games since, in which they scored 60 points and 51 points. And this was a decent offensive team. I mean, the East Tamar Bates thing some nights was good enough to keep Missouri in some games, just those guys alone, provided you get 8 points from an Aiden Shaw or somebody like that. That margin now is completely gone without him. Now, here's the other thing. What have we talked about? The midweek bye has been great for teams in this league. Missouri got that this week. Does Missouri get a little bit of a boost from getting him back, having everybody rested? Maybe.
maybe.
This is why it doesn't matter. Ole Miss has lost once at home. That was to Auburn on one of those nights when Auburn's being Auburn, and just God have mercy on your soul when Auburn plays like that. Ole Miss just got so much experience at guard with Morrell and Flanagan. It's got erasers underneath. Missouri doesn't have much of a post game. Just it feels like unless East is 100% and just playing best ball of his life, it just feels like a mismatch in that building.
Yeah, just to repeat, so no one. I'm not saying it doesn't matter if Shawn East doesn't play. He it obviously matters. It's not going
I
to
really
change my
stunned you
pick.
with that one, didn't I?
That's how I meant to say it. It wasn't going to change my pick. Doesn't matter about my pick. I'm probably still picking Ole Miss here. But here's an interesting stat from our friend Matthew Harris over at Rockham Nation. Missouri, let me see when this was, February 10th. So, yeah, it would have been after the last game. Missouri has had 60 DNPs this year.
Wow.
Like, 60.
Guys, how many of
the
them were John
60s
Tanjay? 20 of them?
18.7% of potential appearances this year. 60. So just for anybody that wants to just go off the rails here, that is a large percentage of games to be missing guys. That's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, really think about it. And so pretty wild. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and look, if you go back to last year, here's what some people are going to point out. They had many more last year, 25.5% DNP last year, with a completely different win percentage, right? And so they had 116 of those last year. Let's keep that in mind. But let's also keep in mind one player accounted for a lot of that. And there were actually a couple other, I think. So it's interesting.
Yeah, who was the kid they had that the transfer
Mosley
from the
didn't play
Horizon?
pretty much all year.
Isaiah Mosley,
So,
who was supposed to be one of their dudes. Yeah.
But, Gomillion missed a lot of time at the end of last year. There were other guys, too, that I'm just not thinking of right now.
But at the end of the day, they had DeMoy Hodge and Kobe Brown. Those were
that's
debatably
right,
two of the best players and two of the best 10
yes.
in the league, and that was that. Yeah.
I think that's part of the point of Matt's article here is as the line I think is the best is not all DNPs are created equal. So, like, do not participate. Like, they're not all created equal here because teams are different. And when you have a Kobe Brown, DeMoy Hodge to make up for it, it's fine, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's just the Tanjay, Caleb Grill, East. I mean, those were expected to be three of probably your top 4 or 5 players if you add in Noah Carter, Nick Honor. Like, so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's a lot because it's a lot of that is starter minutes, right? Like, these are starters. It's not just missing guys like off the bench. It's starters. Like, these are guys who would be starting games and probably playing 25 or more minutes. So it's just, man, it's hard. So, sorry, that was our state of the Missouri Tigers and my client, Dennis Gates. So everybody calm down a bit. But boy, they got to find a win somewhere. Like, come on. Arkansas game, it's got to be it. Like, that's the only shot, I think, at this point. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So,
I got a Dennis Gates thought I probably shouldn't share it on the podcast right now, but it'd be interesting. I might have to float this to you off air.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, let's float on out of here.
What if we bring Dennis Gates to Nashville?
Oh boy,
That's my thought.
Let's float on out of here.
All right. To recap, Blake says take Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Missouri.
Both the same game. Like
it's the Southeastern 14 kiss of death. Blake says also don't bet against the Paris Pact.
Don't.
What did we decided to name? It's the Broom-Williams Tax Act, the Broom-Williams embargo.
You added
we
the
need
tax
to come up with a name.
I don't know what it was, but
they tax your scoring right off the bat the minute you walk in that gym. They just confiscate your scoring.
Well, you can find our picks for Auburn, Kentucky in another video. Alabama, Texas A&M. You can find those in another video. We made our picks for those guys. It's not the best slate in terms of like.
No.
Hold on, Linda. Before you go too far, not the best slate in terms of like standings versus standings, but every time you say that, you're gonna get an upset somewhere, and I wouldn't be shocked if one of these we get an upset. I don't want to name which one I would take the most, but there are some possibilities. But check out everything else.
Well, it won't be Missouri because Sean East doesn't matter. That's what I heard you say.
For goodness sakes, my goodness. All right, that's it. We're done here. Check out baseball. Everything else we got on the channel. We're out of here.
I think we need help. We do need some help for some Auburn fans coming up with this name that we're struggling with.
Boy. Anyways. We don't need help. You need help.
Blake doesn't need help.
I need help getting you off this podcast. My goodness.
Thanks for watching Southeastern 14 presented by Bet Online, and goodbye.